Welcome to Hunters Hill Council meeting 4509. I'll ask you to all be upstanding. I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and of elders past, present and emerging on which this meeting takes place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us, to the common good as in your sight. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Councillors, attendance and apologies. I've received an apology from Councillor Vergara, and you'll all note that the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Crassoy, is joining us via Zoom. We're just waiting on Councillor Quinn, who will hopefully join us momentarily. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have two, both non-pecuniary, non-significant. Neither would require me to leave the chamber, I believe. The first one is in relation to item 4.11. DA is delegated in as much as I'm known to Stephen Ryan, one of the applicants for tree removal. And at item 4.17, which is a matter relating to a construction zone in front of 10 Reedy Road, which is just around the corner from me. Will have no impact on me whatsoever. But even so, I will declare it, but I don't have the right to change.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to move Council accepting Councillor Barra's absence.
We can. She hasn't submitted a written.
You said she.
She did actually. She sent an email in, so I
think
moved.
formally.
Yeah, moved. Councillor Williams, second to Councillor Quinn. All those in favour, all those against. That's carried. Any other declarations of interest? I similarly have a non-pecuniary, non-significant declaration in the. It's the review of the delivery program in George Street being mentioned, but it's nothing that's going to impact me. So I don't think it's necessary that I vacate the chair. Any other declarations? If not, we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes of meeting 4508 held 20 June 2022. Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move, but there are three corrections that I've let you and the General Manager know of.
They have been included, as I understand it, in the minutes.
If I can just articulate what they are so people know my position on these items. First one in the minutes at item 4.3, resolution 114/22 regarding the removal of the ficus trees near the intersection of High Street and Pitbull Road. I did view the video and my recollection is correct that I did vote against that motion. The next one is at item 4.8. Having seconded and spoken in favour of Councillor Williams' amendment to delete section 8 from the Fig Tree and Glades Park Community Centre Reserves Plan of Management, I did vote with Councillor Williams on that matter, so I'd like the record corrected there in opposition or opposing that particular resolution. The last one is at item 4.8, resolution 119/22 regarding Fig Tree and Glades Park and Glades Reserve Community Centre Plan of Management. I voted against the adoption, and again on the video that's quite apparent that I did.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Williams.
Seconder.
Seconded, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, I also thought that Councillor Vergara voted against the Fox one as well.
We can check that.
It's my recollection, but could be wrong.
The beauty of video, Councillor Quinn, is that we can certainly check all of that, and if amendments need to be made, we can certainly correct the record. If there's no other discussion on the minutes, move the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Item 2.1 is a mayoral minute recognising the passing of Tony Coote. I'll read the motion. With much sadness, we recognise the passing of Tony Coote. Tony was a well-respected member of the Hunters Hill community in both his professional and personal lives. He was a highly regarded local architect who, over many decades, worked closely with council on the committee of the Hunters Hill Trust and on the Hunters Hill Conservation Advisory Panel. During his time on the Hunters Hill Trust, Tony assisted in successfully saving Hunters Hill High School from closure, stopping the amalgamation of Hunters Hill with Ryde City Council, and in various attempts to preserve the character of Hunters Hill as Australia's oldest garden suburb. Tony was recognised for his outstanding service to the community, for his work on the Conservation Advisory Panel and the Hunters Hill Trust by being awarded the North Sydney Community Award in 2006. Friends and relatives know Tony as an extremely warm-hearted, generous, funny and gifted, proud of his family, committed to his life in Hunters Hill, and with a very strong sense of service to his community. He passed away peacefully at his home on the 20th of June 2022, aged 78. His funeral was held at the Northern Suburbs Memorial Gardens and Crematorium on 4th of July 2022. I've got a seconder for the motion, Councillor Williams. Any speakers for the motion? Councillor Williams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to just say a few comments in relation to Tony. I knew Tony from 1986, and I've always considered him as a true gentleman. He was somebody who was, as you pointed out, kind-hearted, committed to not only his family, but to our community. I had the honour or privilege last year as Mayor to do the award for his community service, the 50 years that he served on the Hunters Hill, on the Conservation Advisory Panel for this council. And actually I spent 17 years on that panel with Tony. He was always very clear on his opinions, supported and represented the trust on that panel. He was also, as you pointed out, a person who spent a lot of his time supporting the Hunters Hill Trust and was president for many years. He delivered for Hunters Hill through the trust and on CAP a very dedicated and committed and passionate support for what our values are and what the community was trying to achieve. It was my great pleasure a month before he passed to be invited down to his home on the river, on the Lane Cove River, to share a cup of coffee and a chat with Tony and Jilly and a couple of their friends. He was at that stage still very interested in what was going on in Hunters Hill, and we shared a lot of stories and a lot of reminiscing of over the last many years. So he also, as mentioned there, made a significant contribution to architecture, not only in Hunters Hill through many houses, but also more broadly across Sydney and in New South Wales. He'd be dearly missed by the Hunters Hill community, and I wish his family the best and condolences on the occasion.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the great privilege of working with Tony on the Conservation Advisory Panel through most of last term, and my recollections are very similar to those of Councillor Williams. One of the things that I recall most strongly about Tony is in our April meeting in 2021, I believe it was, when Councillor Williams, as Mayor then, made an award to Tony for his community service. I recall Tony sitting at the end of the bench and just recalling so many of his memories about his service to this community. And, you know, for someone to serve 50 years on the Conservation Advisory Panel, as well as his work in the Trust and numerous other things, I struggle to think of others that have made such a huge contribution to this. So I have deepest sympathy for his family. It was a great loss, and I wish them time to remiss and remember some of the great things about Tony.
Thank you, councillor. Any other speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Oh, sorry, councillor Crasso, I didn't notice you there, but I'll make sure I keep an eye on you. Moving on to item 4.1, review of the delivery program progress report as at 30 June 2022. I've got a mover, councillor Williams, seconded, councillor Prieston. Councillor Williams.
No, Mr. Mayor, it's self-explanatory, and we'll watch how the progress continues on those that are either yellow or red.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Prieston.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask a quick question before I speak to the motion? Maria, on page 6, under the open space work in progress table, I note that we currently as a council have an application in with the state government for the Places to Swim grant,
Yes.
which I'm a huge advocate for, and I look forward to hearing the outcome of that application. But I just wanted to know, the funding source being SB, should that be in addition to any anticipated funds that we receive as part of that grant if we were to be successful, or why is it being taken out of the SB funding is what I want to know.
Yeah, through the General Manager. So essentially this report deals with the carry forward funds that we previously resolved. So prior to receiving that grant, council had allocated $70,000 for the seed funding, I guess, for the project. The initial spend to date has been the water testing. The remaining balance of that 70,000 and the source funding of that was the SV. So at that point in time, we weren't aware that we were going to be successful at the second stage of the grant. We've spent this much, and what we're proposing is that we carry over $42,625, and that would just supplement the grant. In the grant application, there's also reference to this original seed funding of $70,000.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you have anything? Are we going to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I was just going to say, to echo Ross's sentiment, I think that it's a really great report. I acknowledge the work that the team has put into this, and I look forward to seeing renewal and rejuvenation in our area through the delivery of this plan.
Councillor Sanderson.
I have a question for Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It's a matter I raised at the time I spoke at the last meeting. I note that we now call our community strategic plan community plan, but the legislation still refers to community strategic plan. Is there any reason for the change in name?
I'll pass it through to the General Manager.
Not to my knowledge, no. There's no specific reason, but I'm happy to take that on notice, Councillor Sanderson, and come back to you for a reason why at the next meeting.
Well, if I could ask a further question, and that is, does that impact on the validity of
legality? I think, yeah, I think that the General Manager will have to take that on notice, and perhaps with that specifically in mind. Councillors, any other discussion? Councillor Williams, no right of reply. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Move on to item 4.2, the draft community engagement strategy. Is there a mover? Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Prieston. Councillor Quinn.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I can just say that this has been through the ringer, shall we say, quite a few times. It's had a lot of review, a lot of eyes run over it. So I think we're now at the point where we're ready to adopt this.
Any other speakers? Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've endorsed Councillor Quinn's views, and I think that it's important we get documents like this, and I thank staff for their contribution, and also to the trust for the matters they've raised. I'm pleased to see that we seem to have amalgamated a lot of ideas in this document.
Any speakers against? For? Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'd just like to comment that exhibiting these plans does give us great benefit and insight to what the community is thinking about our strategies. And I do echo the views that many of the community's concerns have now been incorporated in this document. And it just shows how valuable it is when we seek and take heed and notice of what our community wishes in our documentation. So I thank the staff for doing that.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? If not, I will. I'll just say to the general manager and to particularly Annie, who put a lot of work into this. I think that it's good that we're passing this tonight because there's been a lot of work put into the document and into the consultation process, obviously. So well done. That being said, all those in favour, unless against, that is unanimous.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just one thing I was going to add is the presentation of these reports, I think, is fantastic. Both this one and the previous one that we dealt with, they're very easy to read.
Yes.
And I'll just commend staff on the presentation as well.
Brilliant. Move on to item 4.3, summary of council investments as at 30 June 2022. I've got a mover, Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. Discussion, Councillor Williams? No? Anyone wishing to speak? No. If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I will move on to item 4.4, report on the status of the LEP and DCP review. Do I have a move to the motion? Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Councillor Quinn.
No, Mr. Mayor, I think we've asked for these updates to be sent through to councillors, and I thank the new director for providing us with a comprehensive report.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Move on to item 4.5, community grants policy. Do I have a move to the motion? Councillor Prieston, seconded. Councillor Quinn. Councillor Prieston.
Nothing much to mention here, Mr. Mayor, other than to use Councillor Quinn's phrase from earlier. This has also been through the ringer quite a bit, and I thank Jackie, the reporting officer, for her work on refining this policy around the grants program. I think it's in good shape, and I think we're ready to go to market with it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Now, I do note that there's two nominees that need to be put forward as a part of this process, apart from myself and the deputy mayor. Is there any councillors that are interested? This will be done annually. Councillor Williams, Councillor Quinn, that makes it easy. Duly nominated, and I think we'll add that to the resolution. Any other discussion? If not, we'll just add councillors Quinn and Williams to be the nominated two councillors as a part of the second part of the motion. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Item 4.6, the Hunters Hill Quilters Show request for fee waiver. Councillor Williams moved, seconded. Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Only to add, Mr. Mayor, like with many of our community groups, the Quilters have been a long contributor to our community and to the diversity in the fabric which makes up our community. And it's interesting that one of the big projects that was done during the bicentenary is now going to be exhibited in the Historical Society Museum. And I think you're launching it next week or this week. It's sort of a bit of a shame that quilt is no longer displayed in the town hall where it was since 1988. A real testament to the skills in our community and the number of people that contributed to it and the hours they put into it. The quilters do an amazing job during the the Olympics in Sydney. They did a large number of quilts for the paraplegic Olympics, and many were sold overseas, and they've made contributions back into that. So the quilters have been very active in our community, and I think it is appropriate that we assist them in their exhibition. It's been a few years now since they've been able to hold an exhibition, so I think the community will benefit greatly from the skills that they'll show.
Thank you, councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add that I think it's really important that we facilitate these kinds of ongoing events in our community, particularly given that I know that the quilters haven't had a show for the last 2 years due to COVID. So I think this is something that's really important for the community to come together, see the amazing work of this segment of our people. And I also wanted to note that the 2 charities this year to which the quilters will donate are the Days for Girls Ride Team and the Hornsby Karinga Women's Refuge. And I think that these very topical and important issues of the day. So I commend the group for selecting those charities as well.
Worth noting. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I'll put them up. Oh, Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to reinforce the message that Councillor Williams has given. I mean, the quilters contained some or had membership of some of our amazing community members, among them Alison Rives, who was very much involved in the battle to save the foreshores of Woolwich. It just demonstrates another area where people contribute to this municipality in multiple ways. And I acknowledge that. I'll also look forward to the day when the quilt is able to be returned to the end of the hall.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I'll just pass to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to let councillors know that I had the good fortune of introducing myself to all the quilters a couple of weeks back. As Councillor Williams alluded to, we have now made sure that it is up in the museum prior to the quilting show. And a little bit of a segue, but it goes to the heart of what Councillor Williams was saying, is that I have told you about this previously, but we are currently doing a full audit of all of our artwork and getting it properly valued and making sure that we're doing our due diligence around the aligned insurance for that. And part of that process is to actually do a review of how do we optimise the display of all the art that we have. So that's well and truly in train behind the scenes as we speak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any other discussion? If not, write a reply. Not needed. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I move on to item 4.7, licence renewal for the Happy Hens. The only thing that strikes me out of this report is, and it's something that was brought up by a community member, is that the social impact statement could probably be embellished a little, but just to recognise the work that the hens do down in Henley, and they do have a very positive social impact. But apart from that, I know that they are quite keen to get this bedded away. So, councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Williams, Councillor Quinn, seconded. Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Again, the Happy Hens show another side to the very diverse and engaged community we have in Hunters Hill. And I think the gardens that they've developed there would be probably the best in Sydney. It not only provides an opportunity for the community to get out and work with the soil and in the garden, but also to have that social interaction and learn new skills. There's a lot to gardening, and the support and promoting of it within that group is really important part of many people's life and well-being in Hunters Hill. I'd like to also make reference to the 1-year licence agreement, and maybe this is a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager. Is the reason we're only providing a 1-year licence, the fact that we still don't have a plan of management signed off for that precinct, because I would have thought we could do a much longer term if we had that plan of management in place. Is that?
Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Councillor Williams, in my discussions with Emma from the Happy Hens, they were quite happy with a 1-year agreement as long as we got that to them in a timely manner, because it's my understanding that in previous years that situation has probably expired and we've got to it a little bit later. So they wanted surety of making sure they had that, which obviously we're attempting to do tonight. The plan of management is an issue, and I guess the other thing we have to ask ourselves as a council is a future date of what do we ultimately do with that site long term. So I think we'd have to give due consideration that very carefully beyond 1 year, what does that look like? And that's probably not a conversation for tonight, but I can tell you that that in my discussions with Emma, she was quite happy with a 1-year agreement for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, any discussion? Not. I will put the vote. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I move on to item 4.8, planned events, September to December. Have a mover, Councillor Prieston, seconded. Councillor Crassoy. Councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As chair of the Events and Cultural Advisory Committee, I just thought I would note that we discussed this schedule of events in our recent meeting. It was our first meeting of this particular committee, and I just would like to note that we have a really diverse group with all different experience and a lot of particular experience in events planning and management, which is really exciting because we've got some professionals on board. And I think that we have a few really exciting community events and activities to look forward to. And I note that before Mookabola, which is scheduled to be the 20th of August this year, after a couple of years of not being able to host one of our community's favourite events, we will meet again. So we'll be able to nut out any final missing pieces of Mookabola as a committee, which is great.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Crassoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am just curious why Mookabola and New Year's Eve aren't under our signature events list, or am I reading that wrong?
Good question, Councillor. I could probably pass that through to the General Manager.
I refer to Jackie on that.
I'm sorry, to the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mookabola isn't on this list given that it's focusing on September to December. So the idea with this report is to give the Community and Council a forward plan view of what's to come, and it is just sort of our base event. So if opportunities arise through the committee or community, we'll certainly consider those in due course. I think with New Year's being on there, I note your point, Madam Deputy Mayor, it could definitely go under the signature events. And I guess to be confirmed, given that we're in a different situation now with COVID, there'll be some work, obviously working with Council and the committee to see what New Year's might look like this year in the next couple of months.
Thank you, Jackie.
If I could
Councillor,
just add to that, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm and reaffirm that we have very much open dialogue with the local clergy now in regards to communicating and discussing these events to make sure we don't have any clashes.
Yep. Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, look, this is more just a note, and it's not in the time frame of this report, September to December. But I guess I just want to remind Council and Council staff that we have a resolution from 3 years ago, I think it was, about celebrating Hunters Hill Day on the 31st of July. So I know it sits outside of this. And I'm also conscious that a number of the staff weren't on council at that time, and or even at this time last year. So I just want to flag that Hunters Hill Day, 31st of July. And it might be something, Mr. Mayor, you include in your column coming up.
Could do. We can get some maybe ideas about what we do this year or next year potentially, but because we did I don't think we did a formal event last year.
We weren't able to last year because it was in the middle of lockdown.
Yeah.
So we ended up encouraging people just to go and have dinner in, well, it wasn't
Yeah.
a strict lockdown, one of the stricter ones, but getting people to support local businesses. Yeah.
Good suggestion. Councillor Williams, did you want to
Okay.
speak? Sorry, no, you had your hand up before, but
No.
I was preempting that.
Listening to the discussion around the table, I do note that this was from September to December, but in the past, we've always had a year's calendar. Going along Councillor Quinn's point in relation to Hunters Hill Day, also there's Anzac Day, or Anzac ceremony. It'd be nice for us all in the community to have a complete calendar of those events which we're going to hold, so people can plan for it during the year.
Thank you, Councillor. It's something worth giving consideration to. It's something I remember Councillor Quinn raising when he was mayor about having a community calendar that might even be a bit broader than just the events. It might include things like Joey's Opens Days and the like. So something we can probably think about. Councillor Quinn.
Mr. Mayor, just on that point, this might be helpful for Jackie as well. So we tried to get that calendar for the next calendar year set up by the start of the fourth quarter, because a lot of the other groups and so on have plotted their dates out for the following year. And it also makes sure that we avoid any clashes, which can sometimes happen if we don't have a broad view calendar. So I commend doing that again.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? If not, right of reply.
Nothing to say. Nothing more to add, Mr. Mayor, other than I was just checking the minutes of our meeting this month. It's not in there, but there was a lot of discussion about the way that we could convey to the community a calendar in a very digestible format, and there were a few ideas thrown around by the committee on the evening about, I can't remember if it was in formal minutes or not, but we did discuss the use of social media and other forums to be able to get as much information about upcoming events out to people in advance as possible. So watch this space for that.
Thank you, Councillor. That being said, all those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Move on to Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference, item 4.9. Got a mover, Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn?
No, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I'd simply say I think it's very important that we are at the local government conference when they're held, and exercising our vote on those critical motions that come forward at that conference. So I fully support this.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? Councillor Williams.
I know this is about delegates to the conference, but I'd just like to let council know that I'll be attending at my own cost.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Move to item 4.10, High Street proposed speed cushions, out of session traffic committee item. Now, I just would like to invite Mohammed up to give us a bit of an update on the project and where we are at vis-a-vis community consultation.
So High Street traffic calming devices went out as an out of session item, and in order for us to have the report adopted by council in today's council meeting, and the project is scheduled the civil work is scheduled to start 1st August. All the voting members in the committee, in the traffic committee, have agreed to these the traffic calming devices that we suggested. We were waiting on the police. The sergeant went away, but she did send an email this morning confirming her support to the calming devices that we presented. Just a quick summary on High Street. It's an 11.2 metre wide with a travel lane either side and a parking lane. The travel lane is roughly about 3.3 metres to 3.5 metres. And the parking lane is 2.1 meters to 2.3. So the rubber speed cushion that we've suggested to put, they are 2 meter long and 1.6 meter wide. High Street being a bus route, the dimension of the outer from the outer tire to the other tire is 2.3. So this is a perfect devices to put on a bus route, and we've run it through busway, and they in support of that. The height of the speed cushion is roughly about 75 mil. The design specification for that device is to reduce the speed to 50 kilometers an hour. So that is the perfect device again to install on that. We are going to be installing 4 devices, so on each lane, so one in the parking lane, travel lane, and on the other side as well. As suggested in the local area traffic management plan that we've engaged the contractor back on the 15th of Feb 2021, and the recommended working plan came back as a high priority for High Street. And the recommended device is the speed cushion. So we are going with that recommendation. We did go out to community consultation twice on this. So prior to starting the local area traffic management plan, we've put a form online to seek the community feedback and the expectation of that local area traffic management plan, and the suggestion that we've received in support of, there wasn't direct in support of the speed humps, but there was no objections to that. And throughout the last year, the community feedback that I've been getting on the regular phone calls that we get is in support of the speed hump. We will be doing a letter drop to the community to advise them that we are going to start the resurfacing for 1st of August. And after the council's adoption, we will include the speed humps there. So they've got roughly about 3 weeks to 3 weeks notification prior to us starting the actual job.
Thank you, Mohammed. General Manager, anything to add?
No, Mr. Mayor.
I will just say of the report that this is, and no pun intended, rubber meeting road. When it comes to a resolution that Councillor Crassoy put up last term, and we do have some very good data on that section of Baronia Park, going from Ryde Road through to Pittwater and High Street. So now that we've got that data and we can hone in on those hot spots, I know that the people of High Street will be very happy to get their road resurfaced, and to get these traffic calming devices in. Councillors, that being said, Councillor Quinn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just if I may, a question to the officer. Did I hear you say the road resurfacing is taking place first?
1st of August.
Okay, and then the rubbers will go on after.
Yeah. So the contractor that will be engaged to undertake the civil work, will install the speed humps.
Okay, no, that's great. No, because I was concerned that we were putting them in before the road resurface.
No.
So it's the road resurface between Park Road and Pittwater Road?
Correct.
Yeah, fantastic. Good, thank you.
Councillors, I'm in your hands. Councillor Williams.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Are the rubber devices the same dimensions and as the ones that were put in Manning Road down near the park?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. They are similar sizes. So in terms of the 2 meter long is a standard one, but the width of it can go from 1.6 to 2 meters. But the recommended, because of the speed in the local roads, is 50 kilometers an hour. So
the reason I asked that question is because I've observed just about sort of every second car that uses that location go around those devices, and they're pretty ineffectual in actually slowing the cars down. And many of the modern vehicles, the four-wheel drive things, just sort of straddle and go through. They don't. So I'm just a bit worried that if we're going to put in a similar device, will we get the outcome that we're looking for, or do we need to have a more extended device to make sure people can't straddle? Because it becomes more dangerous if you have devices there. People have expectations, and if they're not actually delivering on the outcome, people might assume that it's safer than what it is.
Staff response.
Mr. Mayor, the High Street having the parking lane on the south and the north side is pretty busy in that area. So having centered the device in the middle of the lane and there's cars parked on the left-hand side or the right-hand side will force the drivers to slow down and mount their speed cushion. It's more of a sort of a behavioural on the drivers. If they want to go fast on that, the damages will occur to their cars. But according to the Australian standard and the recommended is to go with this dimension of the device. And just to add, on the north side of High Street being the low side is we couldn't put a continuous speed hump because of the steep crossfall. So we had to sort of divide it into 4 different sections.
Canberra's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, councillors. Councillor Sanderson.
Yes, if I could put another question through you. I note at the end of the report attached, one of the things they're recommending is to maintain close consultation with residents adjacent to the devices. And I mean, they will generate a bit of noise. So have we finalised the actual position? And have we had close consultation with those that are near it and what impacts that might be in entering driveways and those sort of issues?
Ahmed.
Mr. Mayor. So the locations of the recommended on the map is avoiding any driveways or any stormwater inlets, and sort of putting it centered of that segment. So between let's say, take for example, between Pittwater Road and L Street, we sort of centered that in the middle. So that way it doesn't give a lot of chance for the cars to pick up speed. And again, we know parking will be lost because of that. All the devices will be clear of driveways and any stormwater inlets. So we've recommended these locations, and with the letter drop that we will be undertaking, we'll sort of give it 3 weeks notice. And if any sort of feedback we get from the community, we can sort of try to action that in the 3 weeks. But so far, the feedback that we've received from the community were in support of the device.
Councillor.
Well, one more question, if I could, and that is relating to the level of noise. What sort of impact is that going to have on the nearby residents?
With the vertical devices, they will have a bit of noise with the car sort of going over the speed hump and going down. It's standard all around Australia, and sort of there will be minimum noise, but again, it's sort of you're reducing speed versus. So again, with that 3 weeks notice that we're going to give to the community, if we get any objections, we'll try to solve that.
I presume, if I could suggest further, that if we do get feedback on that, that we will act and listen to the residents who raise those sort of concerns. Good.
Councillor Williams.
Another question, Mr. Mayor. I get the idea that these are rubber devices that are bolted or whatever to the surface. What's the ongoing maintenance requirements of these in terms of that versus a more permanent structure? Because you see in shopping centres and whatever, these plastic or rubber devices within several years fall apart or get dislocated. Is it something that we're going to have to constantly monitor and maintain, or what's the life expectancy?
Yeah. So the way these devices is installed is by putting bolts all along the device, which is roughly about 12 centimeters bolts. And we will be doing epoxy that will give it a further 5 years on top of the So with the device that we're going from the specification of the manufacturer, it says up to 10 years. But again, depends on the volume of cars that go through and the speed. We will be monitoring that very closely. And further down the track, one of the reasons why we went with the speed cushion, the rubber one, is if we did get a negative feedback from the community, they are a lot easier to remove. But if the community actually stayed in support of that, they can be replaced with concrete at a later stage.
Councillor Quinn.
Sorry, another question, and it's more about the traffic pattern in High Street. Have we got any had any response from residents about any changes of behaviour since the speed meter, the radar meter, has gone in High Street?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To be honest, we haven't heard anything back, but with the speed radar, we do get the data collection downloaded on a regular basis, so we can actually monitor the behaviour, the average speed, and that can be presented if
We'll take that on notice and maybe circulate to councillors. Councillors, any other questions? If not, we have a motion in the paper. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Preston. Any discussion, Councillor Quinn?
No, Mr. Mayor, no. And I note, as Mohammed has said, it's been through the local traffic committee. It's fully endorsed.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is unanimous. Move on to item 4.11, development applications determined under delegated authority in June 2022. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those. Oh, Councillor Crassoy, sorry, I've almost missed you.
You missed me a few times tonight, Mr. Mayor, but
Sorry.
that's okay.
I'm trying to break the record and get out of here by 7, but I don't
look, we're doing really well so far, so I'll keep it snappy. There's one item on page 105 of the business paper. It's for 16 Alexandra Street, and it just talks about the removal of a jacaranda tree, and it gives the reason why, which is that it's being suppressed by a larger adjacent jacaranda tree, and that it's also impeding on a really excellent specimen of Gordonia axillaris, or however that's pronounced. And yet the replacement tree that's been recommended to be put back into the front garden is a 75-litre jacaranda mimosifolia. So I was just curious about the recommendation. I know it'll have to be taken on notice, but it just jumped out at me that if one jacaranda has failed there because it's being suppressed by another jacaranda and because it's damaging a really beautiful tree, why would you replace it with another jacaranda, which is not native? Not that that matters, but I guess it's a take on notice kind of comment, really, more than anything.
I'll pass on to the acting director, perhaps, unless he doesn't have any specifics on that application.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any specifics on it, but the replacement would probably be in a different location. It wouldn't be in the same location, I assume. So, but we can certainly do too.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion, councillor Williams?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. As we have a consistent pattern with these development applications, that they're basically tree removal, and I noticed that there's one tree to be retained out of the many that have been proposed to be removed. And again, I continually raise the alternative species that are given. It's not like for like. The jacaranda is, which the Deputy Mayor was referring to. Most of them is a loss of a tree and a replacement with a shrub. And it's something that we have to really look at carefully in our DCP and LEP review as to how we better deal with trees in our canopy cover, which is just as important as our street trees in our parks. The private trees are quite crucial to providing the outcomes our community is looking for. So, and again, with that one that the Deputy Mayor referred to, there's a statement there that says the replacement trees should be located sufficient distance as to minimise conflict with adjacent structures and when fully mature. and that again comes to this issue that we've got a diminishing garden area in many of the applications go to the full extent. So to put a decent tree in a garden, if it can't impact when it's mature on a fence or a house or whatever, a garage, there's just going to be no spaces. So I just raised the issue that we really need to come to terms with how we're dealing with our tree canopy. It's so critical. My recent visits in the last few weeks, it was quite a heat wave, and if you got under a tree, it was 10 degrees cooler. And trees are valued in other communities for a range of issues, as well as their reduction in heat. And I think it's imperative on us when we're doing our review of the LEP and DCP that we really enhance our ability to retain and also build on our tree canopy.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. Item 4.12, report on legal matters, June 2022. Moved councillor Quinn, seconded councillor Williams. Oh, councillor Crassoy, I caught you that time. Any discussion? If not, councillor Williams.
A question, Mr. Mayor. I haven't been able to pick it up here, but I understand there was a Land Environment Court on-site conciliation meeting for 32 Ryde Road. I'm just wondering, is there any outcome to that at this stage?
To the acting director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the outcome at the moment is that there's a negotiated settlement. There would be as I understand it, at the present time, there would be a slight variation in the hours that the children are permitted to go outside in the morning. It was 9 o'clock at the moment. The applicant sought to be 7. And the negotiated result has been 8:30, and there's been some variation in the hours in the afternoon, and that was the result of that particular conciliation meeting.
Thank you.
Councillors, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is carried. I move to item 4.13. Just gauging, councillors, do we want to, is there anything in committees that we want to raise specifically, or would you like to move them as a block? Oh, okay. That's right. The general manager reminds me that we've got an item in 4.13, which is now that we'll have to deal with. So 4.13, Sports and Recreation Advisory Committee Community Representative. Councillor Quinn, Councillor Williams, Councillor Crassoy, sorry, Councillor Quinn.
No, look, I think I'm happy to support that, and I noted last weekend how much pickleball was going on at Baronia Park over the weekend. So it's this
our new favourite sport.
I tell you what, it sure is. So bring it on.
Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to add that I think it's really insightful to have someone on the committee, as Maureen Hurley put herself forward, yes, because she's particularly passionate about representing pickleball at the moment, but I think one of her comments in her application that she would like to be in there advocating for emerging sports and underrepresented sports, which I think is really important, that she's not just coming from that one place. She really wants to bring emerging and small sports to that program, which I think is really important as well. So I'm pleased that she applied to do it and that council are obviously going to support it. So it's great news.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. And congratulations to Maureen. Councillors, is there any other items that you're wishing to discuss specifically in the committees?
Move it as a block.
Move it as a block. That is items 4.14, 4.15, 4.16, 4.17, 4.18, 4.19, 4.20 and 4.21. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion, Councillor Williams?
Just to add, it's either the sustainability or the movement and transport one. There was some discussion last term about private charging for electric vehicles. And I was just wondering whether that could be added to one of those committees or both, because there was some very good work done last year, and with the acceleration of electric vehicles and noting that Huntersville's not all that friendly in terms of being able to get your car off the street in many locations, that the previous acting general manager had got a policy together, particularly around Port Phillip Council. And I just think it's important that we start to have that process going. So maybe if that could be included.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm sure that we can get the committee to look at that specifically. I do note that there is there's one location I can think of, and we don't have many public electric car charging stations, as in none, but there is one situation where a private resident has to coil a hose cord outside of his window to charge his car at night, and it's probably not the best.
There's a very elegant solution to that, which that policy will solve. It's like a garden sprinkler thing that pops up in the street, which is controlled from the house. But the other point that I'd raise in both those committees might like to have a close look at. My recent experience is the boom of scooters, electric scooters. They're just gone ballistic overseas at the moment, probably more electric scooters than there are bikes or cars on some city streets. And I think we need to start thinking about how we might either encourage or support that form of transport in our municipality. It's much more friendly than a push bike. People can carry it easily in buses and whatever, or when they get to work up the stairs. So just another note that there's emerging trends that we maybe need to be thinking about, so that when it happens that we've got our thoughts together and policies if needed.
It's a very good suggestion, Councillor. There has just been a public inquiry into the rollout of electric scooters and LGAs, which I'm not sure whether we participated in or not, but there is a litany of data on that, and I think that it's something, as you say, that is emerging and that we should be addressing at least on a policy level, and maybe encouraging people to use. Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, I just want to ask, because I can raise those issues tomorrow night. We've got a movement and transport advisory committee meeting tomorrow night. Are you talking about e-scooters or human powered scooters?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's e-scooters. They're just a brilliant machine overseas at the moment, and it's pretty scary. They go as fast as cars, but they're much more convenient than push bikes, and the private ownership rather than the hire relationship is much more suitable to an e-scooter, because you can just fold it up, pick it up and take it up your stairs and whatever. So anyway, it's just a thought that it is about to hit Sydney, I imagine, not too distant future.
I think Sydney City Council, I think I read this in the paper today, as they've banned it.
They have, and that's been the subject of that public inquiry, because there is a little bit of a deft of policy on this stuff, much like drones, which needs to be addressed one way or another. Councillors?
My understanding also is there's licensing issues with them in New South Wales as well.
It probably would be.
Whereas some other states don't have those licensing issues.
Something for the committees to explore. Councillors, any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Councillors, is there any general business, noting that we're running very close to not making 7 o'clock? So any general business? Any questions without notice can be passed up to the General Manager. If not, I declare the meeting closed at 7 on the dot. Thank you, councillors. If I could just ask,